this book describes these 3 different types of art critics that God created to judge his piece, to judge his first draft, which is the earth. So the 3 different art critics are birds, who judge from above. They're concerned about beauty and love. And then there are bears, who I guess represent intimacy, and also bears hug a few people close, and they have no problem doing so. And then fish, who are concerned about most people and the conditions of the world. There are just certain parts that just have beautiful writings in them. Let me read you some of my favorite parts. This book is kind of like walking into an abstract art museum. This is like those Dead Poet Society meetings. At least God had given the sunrise to those of us who lived on a cliff. At least he had given us a bit of love, if not enough to see us through the end of our lives. Here in the first draft of existence, we crafted our own second drafts, stories and books and movies and plays. So there's this really cool part where she falls in love with this lamp because she works in a lamp store. And the lamps are quite expensive, but they're also very artistic, and there's a store across that sells more industrial lamps, and Myra is a bird. And so one day she steals the lamp and she just bathes in the light of it. Later, acquiring things would become more complicated and leave her dissatisfied, confused, and wanting even more. But having the lamp didn't lead her to wanting more lamps. It led her only to the pleasure of having this lamp. She got up and turned off the overhead light, and then returned to sit before it. The red and green stones shed its light upon her dark face and the white walls. She left her meager little existence, which was entirely her own. Myra describes her childhood as being very warm because her father really loved her. And then he dies. And all this time, she had been thinking that she was meant for more in life, and her father had encouraged this. And she was leaving this warm place for being an art critic, which is a life that is very on edge. And so when he dies, she thought, all that time, all that stupid time, I should have been with my father. It's a book that deals with grief, but unconventionally so. I think it's just about the spirit and life and death. There's also this one beautiful scene where it's Christmas time, and she steps outside from her house of grieving, and she sees Christmas lights, and she realizes people put these purely out for beauty's sake, and it makes her feel a great sense of comfort. And I love that scene chapter. It's written very beautifully. And also, this book feels very nice reading out loud. The probability of any person being around is 1 in a trillion. So it's almost a 0% chance of you being here. We're going to have, 8 billion people, and those 8 billion people have won the lottery. And the worst part is that nobody realizes that. They don't realize what a rare opportunity they have to observe this universe. Because here's this amazing universe, and if humans hadn't evolved to this stage, they wouldn't know that they were living in this beautiful place. And then it just highlights the beauty of living in an imperfect world. Are you sad to be living in the first draft, shoddily made, rushed, exuberant, malformed? No, you are proud to be strong enough to be living here now, one of God's expendable soldiers in the first draft of the world. There is some pride in having been created to make a better world to come. There is some pride in being the ones who were made to be thrown out. There's something exciting about a first draft. Anarchic, scrappy, full of life, flawed. A first draft has something that a second one has not. At the end, it's revealed that this was kind of told like a nighttime story. There's so many things discussed, like how parent relationships work. When Myra discovers that Annie is a fish, and Myra spent so long loving her, only to discover that she loved everyone the same. Then her lamp gets broken. She realizes that the lamp was more important than everything else. Maybe that's because that was the only thing that got broken during the fire. After the gods stop watching her through the lens, her relationship to Annie seems less magical, and then she realizes that most times she's kind of like watching herself from an outside perspective, and that her memory isn't even from her own perspective. And then there's this really interesting part where she dresses up as a leaf because she's just gotten to that point of desperation. And she visits Annie, and Annie's like, what? I don't know, that's kind of interesting. The ending kind of made me feel like, whoa, life is kind of useless and kind of stupid. I think that's all I have to say about this. I do appreciate it for that. It's kind of tragic and insignificant. I'm kind of sad that's over.